Hello, boys and girls. Welcome in to the Boys and Girl Podcast with Cowboys NFL Network reporter Jane Slater and NFL Network producer Bobby Belt. A Cowboys community with the inside scoop on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, coming straight to you from the Lone Star State, here's Jane and Bobby.
All right, well, we have missed our fans. I know that the fans have missed sports. So good to see you, Bobby. We were at the Star in Frisco for the start of training camp as veterans reported to the facility to get their COVID testing. Rookies that, of course, been there all through the weekend. And you come back with a new look, my friend.
Yeah, this was something the wife forced on me. It was a trade-off that I wanted to shave my head, which it's pretty down. It's growing back a little bit now, but the trade-off was I had to shave because she's like, you're going to look like an accent wall. Like it's going to be two different things completely. And so we got to make it a little more uniform. So she said I had to shave if I was going to shave my head. So
happy wife, happy life. Kristen, I love that Kristen was able to convince you to, you guys are living in close quarters these days with COVID. You've got to make sure that she is happy. We've got a lot to cover on this podcast. Obviously, the Dak Prescott situation. I reported that they weren't able to get the long-term deal done. That one came up to the minute, so he'll play on the franchise tag. What the season's going to look like, even myself, I have some questions still that remain as this situation continues to remain fluid. And while DeMarcus Lawrence, Cowboys defensive end, showed up at the facility for testing, why that situation might still be fluid. The person that can give us all the details on that is NFL agent David Canter, and he joins us in the show. But before we get to him and talking football, an interesting story about a guy making a comeback, the vegan boxer, Mike Tyson. All right, we now bring in one of my friends and a guy who is not afraid to ruffle a few cages, David Canter, owner and agent and CEO of DEC Management. How are you, my friend?
Surviving. I'm alive. I'm healthy, thank God, and just living moment by moment with COVID-19.
Agent of record for DeMarcus Lawrence. So that is our hook for bringing him on the Boys and Girl Podcast. What I love about doing these Zoom pods is the fact we actually get to see the home. Now, I've heard about the Peloton, and not to throw any reporters under the bus, but I know a lot of them during free agency and contract time like to either try to race you or use that as an ability to be an icebreaker for you. How many reporters have used Peloton to get information from you, David?
I don't think they're getting information from me. I mean, as you know, because you've gotten information from me, I'm not like hiding in the backyard, like behind a palm tree or anything like that. I think it's more fun that you can go on and you can compete against your friends and see what kind of fitness levels they're at. I'm in the middle of doing a deal right now with a team. I won't mention the team. And I was literally doing the Peloton for the first time in a month. I'm so fat right now. It's unbelievable. And at COVID-19, we're in Florida, by the way. Everybody should know I'm in South Florida. So we're locked down here. And we've been locked down for about 5 months. So I was doing the Peloton. He calls me, and I'm like, I'm 6 minutes away from being done. And I couldn't breathe. And it's been a month, and I'm terribly out of shape. He's like, wait, you're on the Peloton? This is an NFL team. This is a front office guy. And he's like, wait, what's your name? And I told him my name. He's like, oh, I'm going to add you right now. And then I got his name, and it was way funnier than my name. It was him sweating and then a fast food restaurant. I'm not going to tell you what it is because then everybody will go get it. And I was like, this is the greatest name ever. You're on the Peloton because you're sweating, McDonald's, Baja Fresh or whatever it was. But anyway, and so that's the cool part about the Peloton is one, obviously COVID-19, we're all trying to figure out ways to keep our sanity and work out and try to stay in shape somewhat. And then obviously the fact that so many people from NFL Network have now gotten them. And it's always interesting to see who gets mad when they see your numbers that you post. And I'm like, yeah, but look at me. I look like a bum. Like, I'm not in shape. I'm not like a professional athlete. I'm not, Lance Armstrong on the Peloton. Especially when I was at my peak, I was throwing up some crazy personal records. But I was full-blown junkie addict. I was 6 days a week at least. I was doing 90-minute rides. I ended up getting hurt and tearing my labrum in my hip because I was overusing my body so much. And now I'm going back and forth between the Peloton, and you can't see it, but over here in the corner is a NordiTrack rower, which has the screen too. And I just don't know anybody that has one. So it's not like I can go on. This is not an ad for Peloton, by the way. I
was about to say, Bobby, can I get a Peloton name drop count? Because at this point, I'd like our sales department. Well, I was just saying, I want our sales department to reach out because I too would like one. What's it going to take for us to start working Peloton into the show to get me a hookup?
I was totally anti-Peloton. I was like, this is stupid. It had been around for like 2 years or 3 years before it really got the groundswell that it's had now. Obviously, everybody working from home and being locked indoors is helping tremendously. And I was in Dallas, Texas. If you remember, Deontay Thompson was a wide receiver for the Cowboys. And Deontay and his wife, Jordan, took me to dinner. And then they had to go somewhere with one of their kids. And I had like 4 hours to waste in between when I was going to go have dinner with DeMarcus, 2 dinners, life of a sports agent. And so I had like a 5 o'clock dinner, and then I think I had a 9 o'clock dinner with Daniel Ross and DeMarcus and some other guys, I think at Cowboys Club. And so we went to like a little area, maybe in Plano. It's probably Plano. And there's a Peloton store there.
Oh, yeah. Shop at Legacy.
I had prejudged the Peloton because I just think it's extremely expensive. It's just a very expensive device. It's just a spin bike, but you're paying for the programming and the screen and what have you. So I went in and I met a woman. I'll give her a plug, Courtney Russ. She's married to someone that is in the front office of the Cowboys organization.
Oh.
And she's a former
Cowboys. I need to go up there and drop that I cover the Cowboys and see if I can't get some sort of greaser with that. So
of course, me being the negotiator, the agent, I walk in, this is BS. Let me get a deal. Give me one for free. Maybe we can get them all for my athletes. And she's like, oh, yeah, really? She's like, well, let me give you the names. And she just dropped like 25 names of athletes on the Cowboys, significantly bigger than me, obviously. And they paid full price. And I'm like, what? She goes, at the best, I can maybe get you a free weight set and the free bike shoes. So now I'm like, well, Courtney, let me think about it. She's like, listen, honestly, we have everybody on the Cowboys. They have them at the facility. We're not hurting for business. Now, again, this is 2 years ago, maybe almost 3 years ago. Then now COVID-19 happens, and I have literally referred over 30 people for Pelotons. And it's such a hot device. I wish I bought the stock, but that's not my expertise. That every single person calls me to complain that it takes a month to 2 months to get it. That's how busy they are.
I've got to say, you're so cutting edge because you also introduced me to Spray Grounds, 3 years ago? Ian, you got Ian on it. I love Spray Ground. It's a affordable looking Louis Vuitton with an edge is what it looks like. But you really put me on Spray Ground, so I sort of feel like I come to you for the trends, and now you're talking about.
Did they send you all their new stuff?
I haven't gotten a mask. I haven't gotten the white duffel bag. Look, I love my agent Jim Ornstein with William Morris, but I'm telling you, you're the guy that gets people the plugs.
We did.
I need a plug guy.
Some stuff this year. You'll see it on Instagram. Actually, Ness, it's his birthday today, Ness Mugrabi, who's my right-hand guy and one of the greatest additions to our organization ever. His whole job is, in essence, to make sure that we have the best gift bag for training camp. And so this year, I can't explain to you how much insane stuff, and I'm going to brag, but I'm really bragging on Ness and his work. We have free Traeger grills for all of our guys, the big smokers.
Dang.
I have one. Like Brian McIntyre, our analytics guy, has one in Massachusetts. And it's been amazing because it's you're sitting at home, you're figuring, I'm not busy 24/7, especially during, May, June, and July. We were doing nothing, just praying that this thing would go away and that we could get healthy again and get out of our houses. And so we've got Traeger grills. We've got this amazing Gunter Wilhelm knife company. The Beefer, which is my favorite cooking device of all time. I just made steaks for dinner tonight. We've got all these crazy things are going to our guys for training camp. And we got Uggs this year.
Dang.
Free Uggs, Jane. Honestly, the best, most comfortable
the best house shoes. The best house shoes I've ever had are Uggs. My mother is obsessed with, when it was a basic chick thing, the boots. I was really sad when that of all styles went out of fashion because I was like, this is actually a trend I care about.
You can't wear your Uggs with Boy shorts?
It was very much a Paris Hilton thing, a 90s thing.
Bobby's a big UGG guy, I could tell.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I got him on right
or
now.
early 2000s, rather. But it's...
Especially you go to South by Southwest, right, Bobby?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
I wore those house shoes out. It is one of my favorite gifts that my mother has ever given, but she has everything.
Are they the ones with like the little fur, and they're like, I have a pair. I finally got
amazing.
a pair.
They're
Problem
amazing.
is it's 97 degrees in Florida, so you wear them for 10 seconds, and then your feet feel like they're going to burn, and you're actually touching the sun with your feet. So
you're rich now, D. You're rich after that DeMarcus Lawrence deal, so you just turned the air conditioning at 40 degrees. I mean, I've seen your COVID parties at your houses. You and your wife were throwing these ridiculous gatherings with your 2 children. It's like movie night, luau night. Like, you do everything rich.
3 kids.
Yeah, now, you know what my favorite, I found this out on Twitter over the summer, and my favorite David Canter fact is because he tweeted this. And, well, I mean, this just goes to show the 30-year run he's had as the plug is apparently he was
25.
like
25, Bobby.
30, because you were ringside at a Tyson fight.
Oh, yeah.
In 1990. And that was when that was a hot ticket.
I love that. See, Bobby always has the innocuous nuggets.
I've got the Rain Man nuggets. You've got the actual.
The Rain Man nuggets are good though. So Mike and I've known Mike for since I'm 12 or 13. So a lot of people that don't follow Mike Tyson or know him now later on, Mike was basically just another up and coming boxer in that Atlantic City casino boxing circuit. And I grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And so my father had friends that worked at like Resorts, now it's called Resorts World. I don't even know if it's in business. And the Tropicana and ESPN, sorry, I know NFL Network competing companies, you can edit out the ESPN. Oh, don't tell anyone. ESPN had, I think it was Friday night boxing or Thursday night boxing. I don't remember what the night was, but boxing was way bigger than it is now. Obviously, UFC has crushed them, and boxing people don't identify with it like they used to. You know, the De La Hoyas, the Floyd Money Mayweather. I mean, those are the guys that people know. But Mike Tyson was just a kid, and he was training at the PAL in Pleasantville, New Jersey, which is probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes outside of where I grew up on the Jersey Shore. And so you could go and just watch sparring sessions. So one night my dad says to me, hey, we're going to go to a fight tonight. And I'm like, I couldn't have been more than 13 or 14. And Mike Tyson murders this guy. And I mean, honestly, I think his name was Mike Silverman. I'm like, why is some 6'8" Jewish dude fighting this kid? Because Mike was like 18 or 19, maybe 20. And Mike's 6 years older than me, so that makes sense. I think Mike's 53, I'm 47. Make a long story short, we sat in the photographer's well at ringside of this fight. And understand, this isn't ringside Spinks. This isn't ringside, this is 2,200 people in a dumpy, smoke-filled, horrible arena in resorts. Maybe it was at the Sands, I don't remember, but it was not a place where, like, you couldn't breathe because there's so much smoking. Remember, this is the 80s. Nobody knew that smoking gave you cancer. Or if they did, they didn't tell you.
They did.
And casinos could care less, like they still don't care. And, I mean, nobody's wearing masks in casinos now. Make a long story short, Mike Silverman, or whatever his name is, gets hit by Mike Tyson with a left uppercut. I remember it like it was yesterday. His mouthpiece comes out of his mouth, and blood, and I can see it in slow motion as I'm telling this story, blood goes Rocky-esque through the air and directly all over me.
Oh, that's perfect.
Blood all over me. My dad is wearing like a white button-down, nice dress shirt. I think I'm wearing like a polo shirt. We're covered in this man's blood. And
can you imagine if it was COVID back then?
Oh, gosh. And somehow he makes it through that round. Mike Tyson wins, and we go to like the post-area press conference. And this is Customato. This is his trainers. And I meet Mike. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm a big fan. And he's wearing, I got to get a picture of this somehow. He's wearing, if you remember in the 80s, fashion was horrific.
Yeah, I loved it, though.
Wearing a pair of sunglasses with like triangles on them.
Yes.
One side is black and the other side is white.
Yes, yes.
and he's walking by me.
Were
and
there
he's like,
Zumba pants too?
no, because Mike didn't, Mike is playing
Uggs?
towel, no Uggs.
No? Okay.
Towel, boots, nothing else, no socks. And he's got his little robe on, and he's walking out, he's wearing the glasses, and he looks at me and he goes, I don't want to do my Mike Tyson impersonation.
Hello, Mr. Canter.
He goes, you could come out to PAL and see me fight. And I'm like, and I had never heard him talk. And I was like, I looked at my dad, I was like, did you, was that
what
just
was that?
I was like, wait, was that me that just heard that, or was that Mike Tyson? So that became like a literal relationship with Mike as a friend, as someone I looked up to, as someone I went to a lot of fights. We went to the famous 91-second Spinks fight, and my dad got up we were in our seat. It was nuts. It was at the Atlantic City Convention Center, where I graduated from high school, by the way, in a different room. And it was it was the big fight. It was the monster. Mike was now Mike. You couldn't get near him. Bodyguards, Don King. I think Customato's dead now. I don't even know if Kevin Rooney was his trainer any longer. And my dad knew one of Mike's body men, his personal bodyguards, who wrote an incredible book about the whole Desiree Washington, Indianapolis rape thing, which of course is when Mike disappeared from our lives. Yeah. And I have a great story for that for another podcast. And so, make a long story short, my dad.
Canter Chronicles is going to be the next name of our podcast.
We're going to make a Forrest Gump style movie about David.
My father gets up to go to the bathroom or to go get popcorn, who knows? And on the way back, he gets blocked off. He can't get to our seats because now the fight's about to start, and he never got to the seats because the fight was over in 90 seconds. It was one of those things where I just watched the Buster Douglas 30 for 30, and I remember literally yesterday the fall from grace of Mike Tyson and watching him, this iconic guy that could do no wrong, the Robin Givens interview. I mean, he had literally a full-blown batshit crazy life. I don't know if I could say batshit.
Yeah.
I said it twice.
No, we're good.
So go for it. But I mean, of all the celebrity athletes that we've been around, O.J. Simpson and Mike Tyson have got to have two of the most bizarre, insane. And listen, I know that you guys are probably believers in this. That 8-round boxing match that he's going to have, who's not going to watch it?
I'm all in. I mean, think how much we were tuned in for the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods golf tournament. Like, we're talking Mike Tyson, who, to your point, and then we'll get to Cowboys, I swear, but
by the way, that was the most boring thing of all time.
No, I'm so fascinated about this. I mean, there's not a lot to talk about football, but I think it's fascinating that there's a younger generation that literally knows him from The Hangover more than they really know what the boxing career was. Was it the Barbara Walters sit down, I believe, with the Robin Givens? Yeah. I mean, when I think back on all of that, like, it is weird how society really canceled him, and then he came back, and now here he is in his mid-50s, a vegan, and we're about to see him fight. Of course I'm fascinated. Like, this is the guy, he defines the comeback.
And he's interesting in the sense that his business now is Tyson Ranch, which is marijuana, and you just look at him and you go, wow, this is a guy he's a dark person. Like, if you were ever talking to Mike one-on-one, which I don't think I've ever done more than twice or three times, there's some darkness back there, right? This is a man who said he wanted to go in the ring and kill people. He wasn't there to win. He was there to kill them. And so I think that the evolution of him is really an incredible affirmation story in someone who has faith, someone who's gone to prison, right? He's a convicted felon and has kind of figured out a way to reinvent himself, but he comes back to his core, which is boxing. And he looks fantastic. I mean, I wish I could throw hands like that. He looks scary again, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I don't know if you saw the comments today about Cam Newton. I saw it on The Herd. Joy Taylor and Colin were talking about it. Some exec came out and said they didn't know how Cam Newton was going to do as a vegan. I'm like, look at the Titans offensive line and look at Mike Tyson right now. I'm beginning to think I need to eliminate meat from my diet if that's what some of these guys look like.
Can't do it.
He's the grill master now. He's good.
I wouldn't do that. You know what? But that is an interesting question about Cam, because that was I remember that was something the Redskins ran into a couple years ago, that when Trent Williams became a vegan, they all of a sudden were like, he's lost his power. We got to get him back on meat. So that's probably the Cam Newton concern.
I won't name my client, but I had a client do it. I actually have a client that's vegan now. but I had a client that was a high draft pick who fired his agency and hired us. And basically, for that year in the NFL, they didn't play him. They thought that he was a wasted draft pick, and they blamed it on him going full vegan. They said functionally he lost his strength. He wasn't strong at the point of attack. He didn't look the same player. He didn't have the balance when he sunk his hips to drive an offensive lineman off him and stuff like that. And really, it was a conversation. I had just become his agent, and I remember being on the phone with the general manager, and he's like, the first thing you need to do is tell him to stop being vegan. And I was like, this is a new one for me. Like, I remember saying to the GM, I'm like, wait, that's your biggest complaint? Is that my guy doesn't eat meat? Is
that why you gave everybody a grill this year? Was that a subtle message?
No, definitely not. No. Definitely not. No,
you can grill vegetables on there. Right.
You can grill vegetables. Come on, Bobby.
No.
Okay, that makes me wonder, though. Now, before we get off of that, I got it. What has been the strangest conversation you've had with a player or a front office exec as it relates to deals and people? Because I won't say who the agent was, told me the craziest thing a player ever came to us when he wanted to invest his money, and he was really excited about it, in large tomatoes, because everything has tomatoes. Spaghetti. Like,
what?
He literally,
large
he told me the story.
That's an investment.
He was really trying to talk him off the table.
This really happened today. A player who everyone in the world knows was on a FaceTime with me. I do a lot of FaceTimes with guys because who knows the next time I'm going to be able to fly and go see them. And
I'm a little disappointed you didn't pull a Drew Rosenhaus on draft night and go to every single person's home. Like, I thought you were that guy.
I've been begging. I am that guy, but I didn't have anybody that had the draft at their house.
And Perry won't let you out of the house.
I've been begging general managers to let me be a 3OA. And for those who don't know what a 3OA is, it's like, Jane, if you were to go to practice and it's not the team that you cover, you have to be like on an anterior field and you're away from everybody. You're not allowed to pass through the building, but you don't have the 4 or 5 day quarantine test or hold. And I've been literally texting GMs for the last week, like, hey, can I come? Like, I got to get out of the house. Like, I want to get on the road. I want to go see my guys. I was texting the Tampa Bay Bucks today, and my client was like, oh, I met Tom. Like, it's like, yeah, okay, he's your quarterback. Like, you're going to meet him. You're going to see him a lot.
All right, fanboy.
You play wide receiver. He's like, man, he's just so much leaner than I thought. I'm like, well, avocado ice cream, baby. Anyway, so this is, you said the weirdest thing a player has ever asked me, and I've done this for 25 years. So I'm 47. That was more than half my life. I've heard some crazy, weird requests. Today, literally today, less than 5 hours ago, a very well-known NFL player asked me if I could get him in touch with Roger Goodell. And I said, I can. Why? And he said, because – I'm telling this story because when he said it to me, it made no sense.
So when I tweet this out, you're going to get fired?
Well, he's going to be super pissed. Actually, to be honest with you, I might need to call him in the middle of the show and have you go to commercial break so I don't get fired. But I'm not going to name who it is, so it's better. He goes, I want to get in touch with Roger because NASA has bubble suits and they have oxygen and you can breathe your own oxygen and you're protected. He goes, if we can figure out a way to make our helmets sealed and connect oxygen to it, we don't have to worry about infecting anyone during the season.
No, I will say this. Let's not discourage.
Hey, this is a man who's looking for solutions, okay?
Exactly. My favorite piece of advice from a boss is come to me with solutions, not problems. I like that this is a guy that says, I want to play. Here's how to play. I don't like to discourage that sort of enthusiasm, David. I would say to him, I love the initiative. I just don't know if we can get it done in 2 weeks.
So that was actually part of my answer, Jane. It also, and far better, was, well, oxygen piped into your face is literally one of the most flammable substances in the world. And you play a very serious contact sport, maybe the idea of you tackling a player in the back of his helmet and the oxygen, and he blows up, probably not great for the sport.
I like that we're whiteboarding here. Yeah. We're whiteboarding. We're throwing a bunch of stuff on the wall. Let's see what sticks.
it was funny to see his reaction. My
Because
kid
you did it on FaceTime.
By the way, one of my kids who is going to get punished. You saw the handle move?
Yeah, I did.
I already know which kid it is. It's the middle one who gets into trouble all the time, who I love to death, and it was partially named after a city in Texas, Austin, Texas, but also after Steve Austin, the $6 million man. He wants to come in and be on the podcast.
Come say hi.
If I let him in, all hell could break loose on this podcast.
We're an inclusive environment. It's a different workflow these days.
He just yelled at. He goes, I heard that. Hold on, we'll bring him in. Hold on. Come on, dude. I'm on TV here. Say hi and then go.
Friend of the show, Austin Canter, now joining our podcast, the Boys and Girl Podcast. Hello, Austin.
You're going to be on TV.
Oh, I'm on TV.
Hi, Austin. How's it going?
Good.
Austin, have you enjoyed having Dad at home a little bit more?
Yes.
Yeah?
But he still doesn't play with us.
I mean, you know why? Because he's trying to pay all the bills, man.
Yeah, but it's Corona. There's no football.
Listen,
There
man,
will be football.
Work does not stop. In fact, we're working harder at home now.
Exactly.
Because we're trying to make football happen.
I see those. If you want to just adopt him for a month or two.
I'd like to foster a child.
I've got a troublesome 4-year-old girl. I'll swap you, and we'll do like a wife swap thing, like one of those like reality shows. We'll do kid swap for a month.
How do we get him to Texas though?
Great point.
His name's Austin. He has.
You can't drive, Austin. You can't drive to Texas.
By the way, when we had the big hurricane, I think it was 3 years ago. We evacuated. I drove an RV to Texas for 30 hours. It took me to get there because of the traffic getting out of Florida, so that I could be there for opening night Giants Cowboys.
That's a dedicated agent.
And Steven and Jerry and Todd Williams, I have to say, were absolutely unbelievable. They gave the kids private tours. They got to go on the helicopter. It was literally incredible. I mean, we didn't fly, but they got to see it all. They got the whole practice fields. In fact, I have funny pictures of Austin and our youngest running around the field doing like a race and collapsing because they were so tired. They didn't realize how far it was around the entire field.
Dad's football.
What? I will say the Jones family is very magnanimous when it comes to doing sweet things for people. I will give it to the Jones family. I know that you and Steven have had a very fun and contentious relationship. I think ultimately he respects you. But I really enjoyed covering those DeMarcus Lawrence negotiations.
Yeah, it always helps when you represent a great player, right?
Right.
Now the dog is in the Zoom.
Well, so you know what? Actually, this is a great chance for me to ask the first like actual football question, because I am kind of curious. I was thinking about this, and I obviously I preface this by saying I would never want you to weigh in on somebody else's negotiation, but just on the broader term, you talk about how everybody felt like that negotiation got contentious, and that maybe Ezekiel Elliott's negotiation got contentious, and now Dak Prescott doesn't get his extension, and you see these reports, these anonymous reports that come out that say this side thinks this and this side thinks that. How much do you think, in your experience, big negotiations like that and tough negotiations like that, how much are things said that aren't necessarily serious, or how much of it is just a leverage tactic, or is some of the stuff said in that moment as like, I'm prepared to do it this way if we have to?
I think that I can only obviously speak on the deals that I do. You have two different kinds of deals, right? You have the DeMarcus, the Dak, the Zeke deals, which are extensions of existing guys that have been in the building. Organization knows them very well. They want to reward them. And then there's just a difference in what we think the value is, right? And that business component of valuing guys is probably the most complex part of what we do as agents, right? We have to put a number on them, and then the team puts their number on them, and then we have to figure out a way to make something make sense, right? And so in DeMarcus's, and Jane was there, I think you were there that night at Prime 47, Steven and I have a long history together. And I think we have a lot of love for each other, as much as you can have love when you're in a business where my job is to get the most money for my guys, and Steven's job is to pay the least money for my guys. And so that's a difficult component that the fans don't really see. And to be frankly honest, I don't even know if they care, but that aspect of representing athletes is the magic. That's the dynamic. That's why I can still do this for 25 years, right? There's relationships that you have with media people. There's relationships that you have with players, but then there's relationships that you have with front office people. Where the Cowboys are very unique, by far the most unique, is when it's a big ticket item, you're not negotiating against Brant Tillis, who's the negotiator for the Kansas City Chiefs. You're not negotiating against Kevin Abrams, who's the guy that does the deals for the New York Giants. You're negotiating against Stephen Jones.
Yeah.
Stephen Jones, who is the son and the runner of the person that runs the Dallas Cowboys, who bought a team for $100 million and made it a $5 billion franchise. Oh, by the way, it's not just the Dallas Cowboys. It's the single most valuable franchise in all of sports in the world. So they're good at winning in every facet. And you have to tell your client, and I said this to DeMarcus, all through the first franchise tag and the second franchise tag, and then, Bobby, I'll answer your question specifically. I said, listen, this isn't we're just going to go get a deal. This is going to be long. This is going to be arduous. This is going to be nasty at times. But, and we had this, I should have printed it on shirts, we will win was what I said. And I used to literally write my text to DeMarcus, we will win. I would finish the conversations. Okay, hey, great. Talk to Marcus and his wife, Sasha, heavily involved with me and my staff. And literally, we would end every call. We will win. And it wasn't we will win that we're going to get a ridiculously blown out of proportion deal, but we're going to not do a deal unless we feel like we can live with it when we sign it and love it when we sign it and live with it when it expires. And so for me, that's the key to every negotiation is you have to love the length of the deal, the fully guaranteed money, the average per year, the total cash up front in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, and be able to understand that there's nothing in the team that says after you play 3 years in a row and you're the best player in the history of football that they have to redo it, right? Patrick Mahomes signed, what, a 12-year deal, right? And I'm sure that the Cowboys looked at that deal and were like, oh, man, I love that deal because it's going to be tasty and I can get my quarterback that's my franchise guy until his mid-30s when with cap growth and with an 11-year CBA, this year, one last year plus the next 10, we've got a guy that's basically our franchise face forever. That's a unique deal. But there's nothing that the Kansas City Chiefs have to do that says if starting quarterbacks are making $55 million 6 years from now and Pat's at $40 million, they don't have to go to him. He's under contract. Now, the converse is also true. If they don't like the player, they can dump him, right? DeMarcus had 3 years of fully guaranteed money. After 2022, maybe Bradley and I is my guy as well, or Dorrance Armstrong, or someone else is the next guy, they could dump him. And so in Dak's negotiation, I have no idea what the winning number was, right? But with DeMarcus, it wasn't the winning number, Bobby, as much as it was the totality of the deal, the payouts, the cash flow, and how realistic will it play on the marketplace. And I think we were really fortunate. Jane was there. Steven and I had some dark days, man. We said some things that we probably both wish we didn't say. We had some face-to-faces where we were at each other's throats, sort of, and then we hugged and kissed and punched each other and had a cocktail, and then we didn't talk for a week or two. And then it went really south, and media reports were coming out of Dallas. I forgot what the guy's name is, but, he's obviously back-channeled to the Cowboys, and they were telling him things. And I was telling Jane and Ian Rappaport and other people some things, and it gets back. We know. We've been doing this forever. And I say this all along, and DeMarcus will tell you, it's just business. Dak will tell you, it's just business.
But let me ask you this, David.
Dak's
let me ask you
worried.
this, though.
Todd France isn't worried.
How important was it, do you think, to get DeMarcus on the phone and talk to Steven when you did?
I think that so for the people that don't know, we got to a place where we just couldn't really agree on what it looked like. They wanted, I think, a 7, and then the 7s that had been out there 7 years were Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack. And so a year later, 2 franchise tags, no trade, your own guy drafted versus Khalil Mack, who obviously accolades are better, was a higher draft pick. DeMarcus was a second-round pick. Khalil Mack was top 5. So, and Aaron Donald was top 5 or top 10. and defensive player of the year and stuff like that. And so once we agreed that we were not going to consider a 7 or even a 6, it started to come together. But then we just couldn't get anywhere on value. Again, value is the word, right? And so if you're looking at the quarterback position and you're saying, okay, the tag, I don't know what Dak's tag is, 32 or something like that, but next year it's 38, even with the CBA dropping, well, that's what? 32 plus 38 is pretty easy math. That's $35 million a year, right? Well, historically, when you're doing a long-term deal, the team is paying you more money in the first 2 years of the deal, or in Dak's case, probably 3 years of the deal, because of the premium of the position. And so that part, and now the fact that Pat Mahomes signed for 12 years, not 10, like everybody reported, it's a 12-year deal, and over the first 3 years only gets $63 million, makes it really hard for Dak Prescott's people to say, well, over 3 years, he's getting 63 on a 12, and we want to take 85 or 75 or 70 on the first 2 years, which is a year less, and only on a less term deal, right? Because you always want to get your guys back to the market. When I did Olivier Vernon, that was a huge part with why Olivier Vernon didn't end up with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars were stuck on a 6-year deal. I told everybody at the Combine and going forward that we were not interested in doing anything more than a 5-year deal. And that length of term matters, right? Because if you look at Olivier, it's a perfect example. He becomes the highest paid edge player in history. Then the Giants fire their coaching staff. Then he has a new coaching staff and a new defensive coordinator, and that doesn't work out, right? And then a new GM comes in, and the GM goes, well, this isn't my guy. I don't want this guy anymore. And he trades him to Cleveland, right? Now he's in Cleveland last year. That GM gets fired. That head coach gets fired. That defensive coordinator gets fired. And now he's got all new people. And so we had to redo his deal. From the $85 million, he'll make about $82 million, which is still incredible, amazing, and fantastic. But he has the opportunity to get to free agency come March at before he turns 30, right? The numbers and the ages of players matter in this sport. And so when you go to your quarterback, I know people are like, I saw this, Bobby, like, because I follow Cowboys Twitter, people were like mad at Dak. And then people were like mad at the Cowboys. Yeah. Listen, he's under contract. Yep. He's a Cowboy. He said he was happy to be a Cowboy. And I believe him. He loves it there. I mean, who wouldn't love it there? It's the greatest show on turf. Well, and I got to ask you, too, if he had been negotiating this stuff outside of a pandemic, I just feel like the optics killed him because people are losing their job, and it looks like it's tough. You know, you're turning down all of this money. You know, I was told it was 34.5 was the annual per year. So I would not have done that deal. I would not have done it. Yeah. There you go. So everybody on Twitter can hate me now. If I'm representing that specific player, I am 100% in agreement with Todd France, who's obviously a huge competitor of mine. You know, he's part of the biggest agency in football. But I agree with that stance because I think that there's value in one. Hey, the team's going to have to tag me again. Listen, let's be real. No matter what the cap is, no matter what, the Cowboys are likely going to tag Dak Prescott. Yeah. Even if the idea is that you want to trade him, right? One of my guys is calling me right now on my phone, but I'm not going to answer. Hold on, I'm going to send him one of those quick. Bobby, you don't have an Apple phone, so I don't know if you have it. I still have the auto messages. Can I call you later? Yes, I do. By the way, we can edit this too, David. So if you need to pick up the phone, it's too late now. I already killed it. Thank you. So, which is very rare, by the way. But this guy's talked to me about 9 times today, so he'll wait 15 minutes more. And so. Again, I'm not saying that I don't know where the Cowboys were. I don't know where Todd was. I don't know where Dak wants to be. But if you look at Pat, right, and you see this record-setting, crazy, breaking deal, and you're on the franchise tag, you've got leverage, right? The leverage is – he won a Super Bowl in his first 2 years. He's a first-round pick. So I'm just giving you devil's advocate. I agree with your devil's advocate, by the way. And I'm guaranteeing you that's been a conversation that the organization had with his representatives. But again, I'm not here to negotiate his deal. Right. But if you look at the increasing numbers of where the position is going, and you've got 42, 43-year-old quarterbacks getting $25 million a year, and I don't know how old he is, but he's probably 24, 25, 26. So he's got 10-plus years of earning power. You want to make sure that it's a deal you love when you sign it, and you can live with when it expires. And I'm sure that term and length of term was a major component. And, oh, by the way, if I get tagged twice, I basically made $70 million over 2, and they're already lower than what that number would be. So why would I sell more years of free agency to get a lower number on an average per year? Now, again, there's much more that goes into it. There's upfront money, signing bonus, first-year cash flow, guaranteed money, give back language, because the Cowboys like you to be in the building and work out, or you have to give back some of your money. And so all those things fit into this puzzle. Where DeMarcus was incredible and still remains incredible is, one, if the best thing I can say for every player is if you sign a representation agreement with an agent, you represent that agent as much as that agent represents you. And DeMarcus is the king of all kings, and so is Eric Weddle and a lot of my guys, at understanding that I know what I'm talking about and that they trust me implicitly. You have to, because you're negotiating millionaires versus billionaires. Big difference. Big difference. I saw a great statistic the other day that said $1 million is 12 minutes ago. $1 billion is 1989. And I was like, I don't know if that's accurate, but it's the greatest meme thing I've ever heard of, because $1 billion is very hard to get your mind around. Yeah. And so when the players are doing these deals, and it could be Jamie Collins when he was in free agency this year, and he had fired his agent 4 days earlier and hired me. I've never even met the man. You got to trust me. You got to know that I know what I'm doing, and I'm not going to screw it up, right? Because it's not only your money, it's my money, but also my reputation for years and years and years. Long after these guys are going to be done playing, I'm 47. I plan on being here, God willing. And so, the dog food isn't free. You see Messi's butt right there. I'm sorry.
But I'll be honest with you, though. I've got an agent in my position, too, and while I trust my agent, he definitely did a good job on my last deal, and we got a good amount of numbers. I'm on the final year of my contract. You find yourself...
Hey, Jane, NFL Network.
You do find yourself also coming from a place of, man, I just want to make sure that I have a job and I'm getting paid. So I think some of us, I come from a place of Dak where I was always kind of a fourth rounder. I wasn't always thought of as highly. I think there were still some people that had questions about me. And even when I came to NFL Network, it was a low ball deal. They ripped it up my second year and then we redid it. But on some levels, I would imagine when I heard reports that Dak picked up the phone at the last minute, there's probably a part of it's like, but we're also talking guaranteed money. I want to bet on myself, but we're also talking guaranteed money in a pandemic.
No, and I think that the owners, and again, I can't speak for all the owners, but I've talked to enough owners since March has happened and cancellation of NBA and then obviously picking it back up in baseball and all the things that have gone on in this country specifically. I think they all wish that they hadn't done the CBA, right? Mm. Because the leverage points are far greater than probably the owners would ever have had, right? If you're in the middle of negotiating a CBA extension now with a completely changed global climate, unemployment's at 30, 40 million, insane numbers, people are starving and dying, literally dying every moment of every day. That's a really scary thing. And so, and it brings me to the travel thing that I pointed out we can talk about later on, but where DeMarcus was amazing, and again, I'm not recommending that any other player do this, but when you're really strong and you're really sure about exactly what you want, like a man like DeMarcus is, and you've overcome the hurdles that DeMarcus overcame, right? Like injured his rookie year, 2 back surgeries, disectomies, thumb, shoulder, needed the shoulder surgery. It's like, listen, man, I've done all that, bro. Like, I remember him saying to Steven on the phone, like, Steven, I just want to make sure that my wife and my children are taken care of. Whatever that number is, that's between you and David. But you needed to hear it from me that David has the total authority to do what he believes is right for me and my family. And DeMarcus earned that contract, not David Canter. I'm the little conduit, just like your agent is. You're the talent. He's the talent. I'm behind the guy. And sometimes it takes the player to kick us in our asses and make sure something gets done. But I will say this. So that call ends. The Stephen, David Canter, Brian McIntyre, Adam from the Cowboys, and me And it might have just been Steven, me, and DeMarcus, now that I'm thinking about it. And then Steven says, hey, I get it. We're going to send you something. And then I said, okay, I'm going to send you something. So as we're sending something, it blows up. I mean, a lot of people don't know this. I don't know if I've even talked about it publicly. I was sitting right at this desk, and it blew up so bad on text message that it was over. It was a lot of bad language. It was both sides, hey, we're done. We're done. Listen, we can't even agree on the first 2 years of the deal. We're done. We went way above and beyond. We did things we didn't want to do. This is April of last year, right? So it's still pretty fresh. And I hung up the phone with Steven, and I sat here for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, steaming, just hot, as pissed as I've ever been. And I realized as soon as I kind of calmed myself down that if I let it go into an hour, 2 hours the next day, DeMarcus is playing under that second tag. And we had a strategy for that, obviously, but we didn't want that, right? We did not want to play under the second tag. We wanted the long-term security. And so I called DeMarcus and I said real quickly, and he was upset too, because remember these negotiations, and Jane, you had it with your NFL network because you're talent, and Bobby, I'm sure you've had it or you're going to have it. It's a roller coaster of emotions, and it plays on you psychologically. For me, it doesn't. It's my job. It's what I do. It's what I was born to do.
But I think it's a respect thing. How do you respect me or view me or see me or value me?
And then they get upset, and every player gets upset if you say this to them. And I say it to them. I said, listen, nobody else wants you. You were a free agent March 11th. It's July 28th, bro. This is the first offer you've gotten. You need to take it. Like, I'm going to negotiate it as much as I can, but if you walk away from this, I don't know the phone's going to ring. And football is unique in that sense because most players want to keep playing, but the phone just doesn't ring. The calls don't come. Now, obviously, DeMarcus is far different. And so I called DeMarcus and I said, hey, with your permission, I want to extend an olive branch to Steven, and I want to be the bigger man, and I want to apologize. And he goes, do you think it'll help? And I said, I don't know if it will or it won't, but it can't go this way. And I called Steven. It went to voicemail, and I texted him, and I don't save my text messages because I would have 40,000 text messages a day. And I said, hey, man, we've known each other over 20 years. We've had a lot of good times, a lot of bad times. Call me back, please. I apologize. I want to make this work for both sides. And 15 minutes later, it was done.
As it says, the door is always open to get a deal done.
That's the truth. And that's what I said this the other day on a radio show. There is no such thing as a final offer. It's final when you're signing it. It's final when it's done and you're going in the building to do the press conference and everything like that. And so I would say that I think that Mike McCarthy is obviously not part. He's only there a year or not even a year. I would say that everybody involved with the organization believes that you will have a long-term extension done for Dak Prescott at some point in time. And you told me earlier on the phone, Zeke's deal went south for a little bit, right?
Oh, that thing got ugly.
All Collins' deal went south. I'm sure Jalen Smith's deal. That's just the nature of negotiations. And the Cowboys are no different than any other team. I mean, maybe sometimes it takes a little bit longer because you're dealing with the owners, right? And so the agents also feel like, oh, I'm apprehensive. Like, whoa, this is the owner. He doesn't look at contracts all day. He doesn't study deals all day long. He's not doing deals all day long. Like Bradley and I's deal, I'm not doing with Stephen Jones. He's a draft pick. I'm doing it with Adam, right? And Adam was, and all credit to Adam, he's obviously there talking to Stephen and doing
Adam Pacifica, the Cowboys salary cap guy, for those who don't know who Adam is.
And Adam's been fantastic for as long as I've known him in that he's always honest, right? But just like the Cowboys sometimes go around you, I was going around in the building too. I was texting Will McClay. I was talking to Todd Williams. I was talking to defensive coordinator. Rod Marinelli was involved for a minute. Like, I'm doing my friends. I mean, I've known these people, most of their careers. And so I'm doing what's in the best interest of my guy. And every deal is not that same. Like, you could see Eric Weddle's Pro Bowl practice shirt. I don't know which way it goes here. But like when I was doing his big extension with the Chargers, he actually, a lot of people remember this in 2011, it was the lockout year. So I went to Indy and nobody met with me. It was bizarre. Brian McIntyre and I were there like, do people not like Eric Weddle? And it wasn't like they don't like him. It's like they knew the lockout was coming. The GMs knew that there was a March 4th deadline, and then it got extended to March 11th, and then March 11th happened, and the league locked out. And so nobody was talking numbers because we didn't know what the cap was going to look like. We didn't know if we were going to have a long-term deal. We didn't know if there was going to be a whole year of missed football and uncertainty, a lot like COVID-19 uncertainty. And so I remember giving reports to Eric Weddle about where we were and what numbers. And I was very strong that I felt like he should be the first $8 million a year safety, even though he hadn't been to the Pro Bowl, he hadn't been an All-Pro or anything like that. I just saw the market ticking up. And July 27th, 2011, the CBA gets ratified, and the rookies start going in, and we had a couple draft picks that year signing their contracts. And I see my phone, and it's the Chargers contract negotiator who's still there, great guy, Ed McGuire. And Ed gets on the phone with me, and I'd done a bunch of deals with the Chargers for years and years and years with Ed, exclusively with Ed. The GM never got involved. The Spanoses didn't get involved. It was just Ed. And he calls me, and he goes, hey, and I'm all excited. I was with my oldest son back when he was a little baby, and we were in a sub store. And I'll never forget, we're getting a sub. We're in line, and I'm like, what's up? I'm like, yeah, here's the Eric Weddle deal. And he's like, hey, we're going to let Eric go to free agency. And I was just like, oh my God. And he's like, did you get the rookie pool numbers for the rookies? Because it's 2011, there's a new rookie pool, there's a new salary cap. And I'm like, Ed, I was like, I don't know, Ed, maybe. He's like, well, if you get them, can you send them over to me? I'm like, whoa.
I'm going to do me a favor. Yeah.
You're just telling me to screw off, and my client is not going to be on the Chargers, and at the same time ask me for a favor. And that's the reason I tell that story. That's our business, by the way. That same day, they cut my client Giles Tucker. He called me again to be like, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you on the earlier call. Again, the phone rings. You pick it up. You're geeked up. You're like, yeah, here we go.
Deal's
and
getting done.
Like, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, we're also going to release Giles. His guaranteed money is out of his deal. You know, he just hasn't been healthy. It didn't work out. It was one of the deals I did with Ed a couple of years earlier. And so now you're like at the top, then you're down on the roller coaster again. And then literally 2 days later, I have a deal with the Chargers. The same man calls me 45 minutes later. We wrote a sketch out. Peter Schrager wrote a great story in GQ magazine that included the numbers. I called it the Triple Lindy because Ed said that if I did the deal, the general manager at the time was A.J. Smith, was going to do the Triple Lindy off his balcony out there in Costa Mesa. And so I wrote the Triple Lindy, and in the GQ story is the words, the Triple Lindy, that I wrote in the little thing. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It changed my whole life. Like my wife and I could move to a different house. I could pay bills. You know, I had been a big agent that I had everything stolen from me, but I hadn't done some big, you know, since the Stephen Davis deal in 2000, which was like a $135 million deal, I hadn't done a bigger deal. I did Todd Sauerbrunn was a punter for like $10 million. That's not going to be much on the blip because it's a 4-year deal. And so the Eric Weddle deal is an example of it's a roller coaster business. And the players that are good, Bobby, you know this especially, the guys that you track and follow are the best at keeping even keeled for their whole career. Never too high, never too low. They get it. They're professionals. They understand this is a 3, 5, 7, 10, or if you're Eric Weddle, 13 years, where you really get to make an incredible living, but you sacrifice a lot. It's a very tough sport. You know, Jane, you're in the building. Well, I don't know. Are you in the building now? What's the rules for you?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. We
got to be outside of the building today. But, you know, I love having guys like you on here because, of course, everyone's seen Jerry Maguire. And there's some fact and some fiction, of course, that comes with that. How about Lee Steinberg and his comeback story, which
Incredible.
is what Jerry Maguire is based on.
Incredible.
But I think some people are fascinated with these behind-the-scenes stories. Obviously, there's literally a hierarchy of how all of this works. And when I got in the league and have sort of made moves to do a better job and get more information, you sort of learn how the bread is made. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz. You sort of pull it back and you're like, this is how it happens. I just love hearing these stories.
The relationships are important.
They're so big, but I think a lot of people I don't think a lot of people have actually heard all the details of this DeMarcus Lawrence deal. I know some of them surprised me. What about you, Bobby?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that's always, as you know, David said this, I think, at the start. You know, David's an open book, so there's always good information to be had. I am interested, you mentioning it there, when it reminded me, I'm always interested to get people's perspective on this. And you, as somebody who negotiated a big deal that the Cowboys had done, I think at the time that was the richest deal that anybody had ever signed with the Cowboys, was the one that Tank signed. But when you talk about that even keel and not too high, not too low, in your experience with the Cowboys, because I think this is a big selling point people have for Dak Prescott and for other people that come to the organization. And if
you didn't know, David, he is the president of the Dak Prescott.
I just think that anybody who doesn't believe that Dak Prescott's a top quarterback has other issues that have nothing to do with football related to Dak Prescott.
I think that's a very valid point.
So, David, in your experience, how much do the Cowboys value somebody who understands what it means to be a Cowboy, like as opposed to other organizations, that the understanding, the optics, and the makeup you need to be a Dallas Cowboy?
That is a massive part of the lore, the sex appeal, because the Cowboys are a very sexy organization. Obviously, the money matters, right? And anybody that tells you it doesn't is completely full of it. And so that is a massive part of what the Cowboys are and how they talk to you, how they deal with you. The Cowboys are bigger than any one player, and that's 100% believed top to bottom in the organization. The star on the side of your helmet is more important than the name on the back of your jersey. And if you don't know that going in, you will know it while you're there, or you have a very short-lived career there. And so that's part and parcel of a negotiation with the organization, right? Like Dak or DeMarcus or Zeke, those are the bigger name monster guys. But I've done a lot of other deals organizationally with the Cowboys over the last 25 years, going back to the ranch and going back to people that are not in the building any longer. And that was them then. It hasn't changed. Drew Pearson, Tom Landry, to now, it's pretty much the same. Like, that is a belief organizationally from top to bottom that there's something bigger at play. And listen, they win. They win off the field. They win in the stands. They win in marketing dollars. They win in sponsorship dollars. They're billionaires. They win at yachts. I mean, they win at art. They have a champagne and wine bar that I go to when I'm in the stadium. D. Lincoln, my favorite place to go in the NFL, believe it or not, inside of a stadium, is to go to D's and have a cocktail while I'm watching my clients play. And usually, right, running across from his suite is Emmitt Smith to get a glass of wine, and then run back. And you're like, wait, isn't that the greatest running back of all time? And he's like, yeah, hey. And it's like, that's the Cowboys. Michael Irvin's still around. Drew Pearson's still around. Roger Staubach pops in once in a while. Troy Aikman's there all the time. These are gods if you love football like I do. And guess what? I don't care what the agents say. It impacts you. When you're there and you feel part of that special thing in the lounge room after a win, and everybody's toasting a drink. And I remember Jason Garrett used to come out and hug and kiss everybody and take 1,000 pictures with every fan. You're like, holy cow, dude, this is America's team. This is the Dallas freaking Cowboys. And yeah, they haven't won a Super Bowl in a while. Who cares? Like, really, truthfully, I remember being there for the Packers game, the worst loss I've ever been a part of in my career for a client. Like, it just shattered me. Stephen Davis is John Casey kicking the ball out of bounds. 2001 Super Bowl or 2003 Super Bowl when the Panthers lost. Tom Brady comes down the field. Vinatieri makes
Vinatieri.
And I have Stephen Davis, the running back. I had probably $800,000 worth of marketing deals done that you sign. A lot of people know this. You sign the deals before the Super Bowl. So I'm going to Disney World. That doesn't happen on the field. Somebody doesn't come to you and go, hey, here's $50,000. You sign that weeks in advance. We had Wheaties. I mean, I had crazy stuff. Like, to this day, Steve Smith and Jake Delhomme, if I see them, are still mad that I got all the best deals that he never got paid on, by the way, because they didn't win the Super Bowl. And so I remember, I remember leaving that game, just talking about it makes me want to throw up right now. So I come to your game, I come to your stadium, I come to the Green Bay game, and Jared Cook makes the most ridiculous catch off arguably the greatest pass I've ever seen live in my life. Yep. I still can't believe it's real. The game with Bobby, you follow me on Twitter. I tweeted about it. It was on TV a couple weeks ago, and I was getting physically sick. watching it, knowing what was going to happen, I'm still thinking in my mind, maybe he'll drop it. And the Cowboys were going to win that game. I mean, Dak was on fire in that last 8 minutes. I mean, they were hot.
I heard that was the signature game that Jerry was so irate, he was ready to fire Jason then and there.
So this is the story. We go to Landry Room, and I love Jason. He taught me how to play the Delaware wing tee at Princeton University. I played the same position in high school, and they ran the wing tee, and I ran the wing tee, and he was my tutor at the quarterbacks camp. So I've known the man a long time and love him to death, love his family, and obviously coached here in Davie, Florida, still has a 954 cell phone number, by the way. For when the Dolphins are here in Davie, Florida, where I live.
Right.
And he comes to the Landry Room after the loss, and he's shaking hands and taking pictures and kissing babies. And I was heated, man. And I was like in shock. I was actually like, that was a devastating loss. And if you're Jason Garrett, that team was hot. That team
13-3 season.
That team could have run the table easy.
You lost Tony Romo that year. No one expected them to go on that run.
And I still am blown away that a head coach would come. And I don't know if it's contractually obligated. I have no idea. But that was something to me, like as an agent who knows the man but also knows the organization. I was like, hey, win or lose, this thing matters. What they have here in that room, what they have with the players, the camaraderie. I've never met a guy, ever, and this matters, Bobby, in negotiations. I've never met a guy that didn't like playing for the Dallas Cowboys. And I've met a lot of guys that don't like playing for other places. I've never met a guy that badmouthed the organization leaving. And I'm friends with a lot of guys that aren't my clients, that are retired or have been around the league, and there's certain places. And Olivier's interesting because when he left and went to New York, it was like, hey, this is going to be the big city. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. Eli Manning. And, of course, we got there as Eli was on the downslope of his career. And they went to the playoffs his first year. And the second year, they were, firing the coach after 5-6 weeks.
Beat Dak twice his first year.
They beat Dak twice that first year. And it was all peaches and roses and everybody was happy. And then the second year, the wheels fall off. And I remember him saying, man, I wish Miami had offered me. I wish I'd stayed in Miami. And, again, Miami, another team not successful at all. I can't remember the last time they won a playoff game. But players like South Florida, like being here and raising your family, like DeMarcus is going to live for the rest of his life in Frisco, Texas. It's an amazing environment. Bradley got there a lot of people know this. Bradley got drafted by the Cowboys in April. He's never been to Frisco, Texas. He was in Hawaii, where he's from. So he landed, you land and you're like, okay, the airport's whatever. And then you get to the Star and it's like, huh? What? They have a bar and restaurant for VIP guests inside. They have a hotel through a tunnel.
There's a rooftop pool.
Facility. You have a rooftop pool. There's a helicopter.
They have a Wahlburgers. They got it all. It's
pretty crazy. And listen, I know people will get mad at me for saying this that are fans of other teams. There's nothing close. Nothing in the entire National Football League like what Steven and Charlotte and Jerry built there. It is bizarre. It is incredible. It is amazing. And it is conducive to winning a lot of Super Bowls. That, by the way, don't get me wrong. The end game is to win championships. And the one thing I will say about the Cowboys, there are teams, I won't name them, they're not built to win Super Bowls. The ownership group there is just as happy being 8-8 as they are if they were 16-0. Winning a Super Bowl is like, yeah, if it happens, okay. But if we have to overextend ourselves or if we have to pay more for guys, we're just not going to do it. And you know who those franchises are because they've lost historically year in and year out, year in and year out. There's new head coaches, there's new GMs, there's new ownerships. That's one thing about the Cowboys that have amazing stability in a league that doesn't have stability.
But I think it's even more than that. In just my time covering the Cowboys and getting to know Jerry, you have a person that literally, I believe, doesn't sleep much at night, stays up and thinks about winning. The mediocrity, the losses, the frustration. I mean, he literally cries on cue every year at the Happy Hill Farms luncheon, which I'm going to miss this year. The same story about getting Gene to let him sell the car and sink the money in, and his parents telling him he shouldn't have bought the Cowboys. And It was at Combine this year. It was Mike Vrabel, Kyle Shanahan, and who else was with me? One other coach. They literally said to me, I want to meet Jerry. Like, these head coaches are mesmerized by him. Yeah. And when Jerry came over, Jerry grabbed them. He's like fascinated with them because they all played football at the NFL level. He talked about his Arkansas playing. Like, this, it's not an investment for him. It's not a hobby for him. It's passion.
Life. It's life.
It is the fabric of his being. And I think that's what makes him so magnetic. I could talk to you for hours, but we really wanted to bring you on here before we wrap some of this up. You've been on a lot of these.
This is a 12-hour podcast.
I know.
Yeah, we're doing
This is like a show of all the Avengers movies in the movie theater. You just go sit there and it's like 28 hours of Avengers movies.
Well, and it's interesting stuff. I think people are interested in this. We'll call them the Canter Chronicles. But what I think is fascinating is how a lot of these discussions with the league have gone. Obviously, as reporters, we've had some insight. We've reported it. But you've been on a lot of these phone calls. So many people have been hyper negative as it relates to the football season and the future of it. I know you've been taking COVID very seriously. Again, you've been on the calls. You've got a lot of players in the league. What's your sense of the football season this year? And what do you think are some of the things they need to tighten up where we get to actually seeing players on the football field?
Wow, that's an incredible question. Great question. So one is there's obviously the thing that hasn't been agreed upon or hasn't come out in paper form, which is the opt-out, right? You have two different ways you can opt out as a player. Opt-out one is just a voluntary opt-out. Hey, don't really care what the environment is, don't really care what the safety protocols are. It doesn't fit my mindset, my health, my family. I'm opting out. Voluntary. You get $150,000, which is a recoupable advance. Very important. A lot of fans, I think, believe that $150,000 is theirs no matter what. And so they're like, well, why wouldn't everybody take it? You don't have to do anything for it. Well, you have to pay it back, right? And I think that that's super important for the fans to understand. It's a recoupable loan. What we don't know, and we still don't know because I've been checking because I do have one player that I'm pretty sure who was actually calling me earlier is going to opt out, is we don't know how do they get the money back. What happens if he says, hey, I'm done. I'm never playing football again. In 30 years from now, he's a professor at a law school. Can he get his money taken out of his account, right? Can they garnish his wages? And then the second one, which is obviously the much more prevalent one initially, is men with pre-existing medical conditions. There's 15 pre-existing medical conditions, heart disease, obviously cancer, sickle cell disease, things like that they can automatically opt out. And they'll get a $350,000 advance. But what we're hearing now is that will not be recoupable. So that will actually be money that's paid to them that they can get if they don't ever play again because they had a pre-existing medical condition. The other confusion is what can the rookies do? If you're an undrafted free agent rookie and you're the 90th guy on the roster and you know you weren't going to make it, well, a smart businessman would say, hey, man, opt out and take that $150,000 because it's more money than you're going to make playing football this year. But we're hearing now, and Tom Pelissero from your network actually broke the story, that if you're an undrafted free agent rookie, you cannot opt out. Even if you have a medical condition, you still can opt out, but you will not get the money. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say you can't opt out. You still won't get the money, regardless of it's because of your status on how you came into the league. And so a lot of the phone calls, Jane, were men really concerned. Like, this is a real serious risk. And, oh, by the way, 70+% of the league might fit in the obese category or the high BMI category, which opens you up to health issues if you do, unfortunately, get infected with COVID. A lot of players have asked a question that it doesn't sound like is going to get answered, which is 20 years from now, I go in, I test negative, I report week 6, I get COVID. However I get it. I get it from a teammate, I get it from an opposing player, a head coach comes over and fist bumps me, and then I rub my face, and I get it. And 25 years from now, I have liver failure or organ failure or heart disease. Is the NFL going to pay my insurance? Is the NFL going to compensate me in some way? It sounds like the answer.
But the argument on that, too, though, David, is when you're not living in a bubble, which is sort of my pushback on this, even with reporters, we're not going to have access to the locker room this year. And some of us that may have access just to practice are going to be tested as much as some of the players, is what we're hearing. And again, some of this is still fluid. by us not being able to have access to any of the players this year, it'll be virtually. They're saying that we somehow are running the risk of contaminating them. But I go, but you're still going home to family and friends and assuming that they're not. So I could see how the league could push back and say, well, because we're not in a bubble scenario, why should we, if you get COVID, we're testing you to make sure that you're okay. And if you got COVID, then you quarantined, but you can't prove. This isn't like concussions. You can't prove that you got it from playing football, the COVID. So I think that might be a loophole that I think is fascinating.
Yeah, and it is. The problem with this, and I've tweeted it, I've talked about it, is that the virus dictates. No one in the United States of America, at least, has gotten a handle on COVID-19. No one. Not any state, not any city, not any community, not any governor, not any president, nothing. And so the NFL is trying to really do something that is far more unique than the NBA or Major League Baseball or the other sports. And part of it is, one, you can't really bubble, right? You know, the average fans, Bobby and Jane, you know that there's hundreds of men and women who are dedicated to football. Every team has dozens and dozens of people that you never know, you never see, you never talk to. And it could be the person that tapes your ankles. It could be the guy that screws in your helmet or puts the microphone in the back of your helmet. There are so many men and women who are dedicated to the sport and who work in a front office, right? And who work in the marketing office and who work in the ticket office and who work on the field, off the field, just enormous amounts of people. And you can't take them plus 80 men plus 30 coaches and put them in a bubble. Where would you do it? I mean, what place has enough football fields and enough indoor facilities and enough meeting rooms and enough film rooms and enough taping areas and enough training rooms and enough x-rays and MRI rooms and things like that? It's just not possible. So what I think, and again, I only think this, I think the NFL has done a very, very good job in creating a very, very difficult protocol. You are asking these men to basically give up normal life for 6 months. If we want to have a successful football season, and I've told this to all my guys, I had this conversation with Von Bell and the Bengals 2 days ago, you're going to have to give up normal life. If your normal life as a football player is Tuesday night, you and your wife has an off day, you and your wife go to the mall, you and your wife go out to P.F. Chang's, to throw in a Mark Davis plug right there. And if your mindset is, hey, we're going to go to a movie, you're not doing any of that now. Like, you can't. Like, legally.
That's part of the agreement, right? It's in there that they are not. Go through some of them because there are some interesting ones.
So there's prohibited conduct that is part of the COVID-19 regulations that eliminate or can penalize players for going to a bar.
That was my question, how they're going to get penalized.
Going to a bar for more than 15 people. What the penalty is if you get infected and then bring that infection back to the facility. So let's go logistically. You go in day 1, you test, you're negative. You go in day 4, you test, you're negative. You go in day 5, you test, you're negative. Now you're in the building. Now you're playing the season, you're getting negative tests all the way through. Now some external activity, going to the movies, going to a restaurant, going to a bar, going to a strip club like we saw just happen in the NBA, getting wings. Sorry, I don't know the guy's name. I think it's Lou Williams.
Lou Williams.
Yeah.
Everybody else is Jack Harlow. Jack Harlow. Daniel Ross is a big fan of Jack Harlow.
Is he? I'll talk to D. Ross about it later on today. And so you go and you violate the protocols, so to speak. You don't get penalized. If you then become infected and test positive after being negative because you violated the protocols, you would go on NFI and not be paid during your quarantine.
Damn.
Normally, if a guy just gets infected naturally or through outside interference, because obviously they're going to still go home, they're still going to hug and kiss their wife and their kids, I hope. They're still going to see their mom and dad, I hope. And then you get infected, you would not have violated the protocols. Now, every player is going to wear a tracking bracelet in the building. That bracelet is going to be limited to your group. So just the D-line are going to be together. That's it. They're going to be in the meeting rooms. They're going to be in the weight rooms. They're going to be in the training room. They're going to have blocks. And so the protocols are very strict. They're incredibly hard to follow. I won't lie to you. It's going to be difficult. And that's one of the reasons why today I mentioned travel. The example that frightens me and should frighten anyone who loves our sport is what happened to the Marlins in baseball. Everybody is assuming that the Marlins all got it down here in South Florida because we're a global hotbed of this coronavirus here in Florida because we have no leadership and the ones that we have are a bunch of morons. That's my only political comment for the rest of the day.
Camera anyway.
But what's that?
On camera anyway.
Yeah, on camera. But what happened with the Marlins is they actually traveled to Atlanta and they were in the hotel. And as you know, because you've been to players' hotels, things are going to happen. Boys are going to be boys. Men are going to be men. And so it could be the Uber driver that you pick your food up from and you touch the bottle and he touches your finger and then you rub your nose. You've got COVID-19. It is that contagious. And so it could be some more nefarious things, right? It could be going to the strip club. It could be bringing the strip club into your hotel room. It could be your wife comes in for a visit and she just got off a plane and landed at Delta at Atlanta and somehow contracted the illness and now gave it to you, right? And so to me, one of the many ways that I think the NFL can get in more games is to eliminate overnight stays for players. Now, people are freaking out on my Twitter. Obviously, Buffalo Bills have 4 West Coast trips. You're not gonna ask the Bills to wake up at 4 a.m, fly to San Francisco, and then kick off against the Niners at 3:30. Yeah. And it's going to crush the scheduling department, and it's going to crush the logistics department. But my answer is, okay, so maybe the quality of football won't be as good. Guess what? It's already not going to be as good because you had 30 guys, legitimate superstar players, legitimate starters, just opt out, right? Yep. The Patriots lost 5, 6, 7 guys, of which 4 are studs. I mean, that I would die to have as clients, right? And so you know that already we're not going to have a normal football experience. We're not going to have fans in the stands, or we're going to have a limited number of fans. So the atmosphere is going to be different. If you watched German soccer or English soccer or Italian soccer, there's definitely a feel to the game that's different. The pace is not necessarily as great. The players don't necessarily seem to be as engaged, especially when they scored a goal. They were just like,
let's be honest, this is preseason football. We're going to be watching 16 preseason games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know if you're going to be watching 16 preseason games, Jane. I hope
the feel of it, you know, when you go to a preseason game, it sort of has that flatter feel to it.
It's definitely going to feel crappy. And it very well may be a watered down product, but what's the alternative, right? The alternative is no football, and we would all not want that. And
when everyone says they're not going to watch it this year, I'm like, you guys watched that golf tournament. That's all I have to say.
Everybody's going to watch.
Everyone's going to watch it. In fact, I believe that the worst thing the NFL can do from a negotiation standpoint is start negotiating the new TV deals before the ratings come in for this season. Because I think if you're seeing WNBA games get ridiculous ratings and MLS games and baseball setting records, I mean, listen, I've been home for 5 months. Yeah. I'm dying to watch something that other than a TV show. Yellowstone, great television show.
So good.
Love it to death. Ozarks, amazing, great television show. But I never watched TV during the regular year. Like, I didn't know about Yellowstone until 2 weeks ago.
Same. Beth Dutton is the best female lead in a show. I love her. So complicated. So angry.
So angry.
So many sharp edges. So many sharp edges.
Person. And then so tender and sweet, right?
Yes. You find out why she's so sharp in this last episode.
See,
I just finished season 2 last night, so don't tell me anything. But, you know, like my client says to me, he's Cody Barton on the Seahawks, is like, are you watching Yellowstone? And I'm like, no. He's like, what? It's a great talking about. So, of course, I download the preview. You know, I go on the app, whatever. I download the preview, and I'm 20 minutes in. I'm hooked. I'm in love with Kevin Costner.
I didn't stop watching it. But you know why? I was obsessed with Sons of Anarchy, and I guess some of the showrunners that were on Sons of Anarchy are also on this one, and it makes a lot of sense.
I was on Sons of Anarchy. That's why you said that, right?
Name dropper. Can we also get a counter when we edit this? How many name drops we've had in the show?
No, we'll make sure. Yeah, we'll make sure to have we'll do a nice little promo cut up of just all the times that David name drops.
By the way, I'm not name dropping. You asked me about Mike Tyson.
That is true.
Jane mentioned Sons of Anarchy. I just happened to be on the stupid show.
I have a Peloton, but I also have a Nordic that nobody has.
The big
it's old.
flex,
that's why nobody has it, Jane. It's been out for a couple years.
Big flex. He literally just has a door to his office that's autographed by plenty of people behind him, as you can see there.
That's the genius of Perry Canter. She was redoing my office, and she's like, well, why don't we put turf on the floor? It's just fake grass. And then I'll paint the wall black, the doors black, and whenever players come over to visit, which guys are here all the time, pre-COVID, guys were here all the time, partially because there's a lot of great training facilities here in South Florida, great weather, great people, great environment, water.
And they come over there and they walk away with a swag bag.
Yeah, everybody gets a little swag bag at the house.
It's a great look. I gotta say. I gotta say.
You've been to the house?
I haven't. I didn't get the invite.
That's right. You didn't come to the Super Bowl party.
Yeah, right. I forgot why I didn't go.
Because you don't like me.
No, I was dealing with the ex-boyfriend. I think that was.
Oh,
I
gosh.
think that may have.
Oh goodness, that's drama.
No, you were for Super Bowl, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, but yeah.
So I did. You know what it was? I think I did a weird night because I knew that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, everybody's locked out.
It was
so
earlier.
I think we did a Monday night or a Tuesday night late too.
So jealous, and I love Sweet Perry. Yeah, I love me some Miami, so I'll definitely get there.
So I'm just curious because I know this is one of the main things we wanted to touch on. There was DeMarcus Lawrence was one of the bigger players that had expressed reservations about playing, and now we hear that he is going to go ahead and play. When you talk about how rigid the testing protocol is and how intense it's going to be, is that ultimately what you think swung DeMarcus over? Was okay, this looks to be stringent, and I feel comfortable now, or was it just a change of heart?
It's still ongoing. So I won't lie to you. We talked about it again on FaceTime earlier today. I think he's feeling good. Again, it's day one, right? And so this is a fluid day-to-day thing. And I think that the hardest part of COVID-19 that I've dealt with, at least emotionally, is the day-to-day uncertainty, right? Like we want to know what's going to happen, especially Americans. What's next? But stream all of our movies. I want to watch them all right now. I want to know now. I want instant. Twitter is so big because nobody wants to read anything that takes 275 words to get to this punchline. They want it in 20 characters, right? And so with DeMarcus, it was about gathering information. Obviously, I'm not going to be involved in that decision from the standpoint of what's in his best interests. To be honest with you, I've been locked down for 5 months, man. We hired and shipped. We used an app to get our groceries delivered. Like we're not going anywhere. Yeah. So for me, the whole idea, and part of it is because I'm pretty sure I had this illness in December and early January, and it was the worst sickness I've ever had in my life. But I know so many people that have had it, and I know people that have died from it. There's an agent, Buddy Baker, lost his mother and his father from this horrible thing. And so, that's tragic, and the tragedy's, constant, right? And so I think for DeMarcus, what happened, and again, it's fluid, is the testing changed, right? One of the big things was initially it was going to be back, the one you've seen where it's all the way in the back of your head. The technology related to that has changed, so now it's just an interior nasal swab. So it's not as intrusive. And obviously, if you were getting jammed in the back of your brain every day, you might have a lot of reservations about that. I'm hoping, and I showed you guys this earlier, I'm hoping that we get the EUA. I actually have spit tests, which I don't know if you can see.
Wow.
There they are. So these are the only spit tests in the world for COVID-19, and they're like 99.6%. So you just spit in it, mix the solution, and then the lab gives you the results on an app within 24 hours. But I do feel like as information came out and I was giving it to our guys, I feel like DeMarcus's confidence in how this can be done safely grew, which I think will lead him to playing this season. I would be surprised if he opted out. He would be one of the guys that I would put in the, oh, wow, I thought he was going to play category.
But to your point, for anyone I think I've seen the subset of fans out there that are knocking some of these players. And like I said, the misinformation I think is out there about the money and that it is, to your point, I was writing this down, recoupable loan. Because again, even us reporters are still trying to figure out some of the language as it applies to all of this, because a lot of it remains fluid. You said it earlier, even in his negotiations with Stephen Jones, I've never seen a guy more obsessed with his family. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Mark Ingram's obsessed with his family. Cam Jordan obsessed with his family. DeMarcus Lawrence is that guy. I mean, Sasha's been here. I do a Cowboys show at the House of Blues. She's come. He loves his kids. You know, he talked about missing the birth of his first child. He didn't want to miss the birth of his second child. So I believe him, and I take everything he said at face value about the safety being paramount to him. But I am curious, if he wasn't to play this year, how was his contract look? Does he get some of his guaranteed money still? How would that work?
So that's interesting. The players that have guaranteed money, if they opt out, don't get their money this year. If you voluntarily opt out, and DeMarcus's number I think is close to $17 million, fully guaranteed, he wouldn't get any of that money.
Wow.
And it would just toll and kick into 2021.
He'd get it next year. So, yeah, but to your point, that when we talk toll, not our audience isn't hip to all of this. When it says it told, that means he also gets an extra year on his contract. So in other words, this year didn't happen, but it picks back up as if 2020 is now 2021.
Yeah,
and then we move forward.
For a lot of players, and DeMarcus wouldn't fall into this category, but one of the conversations you have to have with football players, especially during this situation, is if you decide voluntarily, not medically, to walk away from the NFL, there's going to be 15, 20 teams that wash their hands of you, maybe the whole league. It's a very difficult sport to get away from and then come back to. I very rarely have seen it. I mean, I remember Brandon Spikes was one of my guys who missed an entire year and then fired his agent and hired me and came back in and played another full year. But it's very, very, very rare. It's almost never happens where a guy says, hey, I'm retiring. I'm done. I don't want to play the game. And then 2 years or a year from now, come back. I saw today, I think it was Alex Boone.
Yep.
He left a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And now he's got interest or he's thinking about making a comeback. And so with players that aren't necessarily status, they're not starters, they're not every down guaranteed guys on the 53-man. If they walk away, it might be hard to get back in this sport. You've got to remember football is a draft every year. There's a bunch of street free agent guys. I mean, hell, Des Bryant would still play if someone called him.
Well,
100%. Terrell Owens wants to still play.
Still could.
I have two very dumb questions. I'm just curious. One, if these players walk away from the game this year, let's say it's an undrafted free agent, can they claim unemployment?
It's a great question.
How does it work with contracts in the league?
If their contract's been signed and filed, I think they can.
So in other words, would that apply to a DeMarcus Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but would he?
Does he get 70% of his salary for unemployment?
No, I don't think it would apply to that number. I think it's a much lower threshold of what.
But he would still be able to claim unemployment of some sort.
I mean, I would highly advise against him doing that.
I'm just curious.
Because the minute someone sees DeMarcus Lawrence drive off in a Bentley away from which, by the way, Park Place, Dallas, love you guys very much. DeMarcus Lawrence got a free Bentley marketing deal. Amazing. That's not a name drop. That's Park Place, Dallas. I mean, I love the ladies there. They're an amazing company. If I could afford a Bentley and I wanted one, I would probably immediately get one from Park Place.
Our sales team needs to call them.
Hashtag ad.
Okay, but seriously, but a player that doesn't make that sort of money, do you think that they could claim unemployment at this point?
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. Yeah. And then my second question for you, just out of curiosity. I don't know if they
claim unemployment. Again, we haven't seen the language for the opt-out. So it may be that that's actually part of the agreement, is that if a player opts out and voluntarily leaves, they can't say that they're unemployed because
they're still getting paid.
Unemployed, right?
Right, and they're getting paid, right?
Well, it's not like you're quitting. You're temporarily suspending your playing. You're suspending it for a year, right? We're pushing it off. We're acting like for that player this year never happened.
And does their insurance policies cover them?
So that was a huge part, massive part of the conversations between the union and the players. Don Davis did a tremendous job listening, hearing, and answering all the players. And at some calls, we were over 1,000 men on the phone. And yes, the insurance will stay intact for the guys that voluntarily opt out, from what I remember, which means it's a bigger ticket item. But remember, the offset to it is all the player benefits have disappeared for this year. So there's no second career savings plan. There's no 401k matching. There's no player performance checks that come usually in April based on the playtime percentages that you're on the field versus your salary cap number. So the players gave up a lot of things from the benefits side so that guys that do opt out can still continue to have some of the perks that come along with being an NFL player.
I hate to commandeer, Bobby, but I've got so many questions that I haven't even gotten answers. So a few more.
Because I told this 20-minute stupid Mike Tyson story.
Hey, it was worth it. Tyson.
It was totally worth it. Okay, so my other question is, what about players like Dak Prescott who actually have additional insurance on their particular careers? Like, does DeMarcus Lawrence have an additional insurance plan on his career?
Like a season-ending or career-ending disability?
Correct. Like, how is there anything
as long
that
as they pay the
them?
premium, that would stay in play.
But is there anything that protects them in COVID?
Yes. In fact, I have a fascinating guest for you for your next podcast. Is Eugene Dorfman, who does Pro Player Insurance, does almost all of our guys' insurances, and he sent that to me no more than 2 or 3 weeks ago, that COVID would be protected under career-ending disability. Yeah, it was interesting. And
I wonder how many of these players, these superstars that are sort of talking about opting out, have said, you know what, this just isn't for me. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I have this insurance plan.
Well, remember, in order to have the disability kick in,
you'd have to have COVID.
You have to have a disability, which obviously no one wants.
Well, it wouldn't just be having COVID. Would it have to be COVID and you don't play football anymore after that? So it would have to end your career.
You have to be disabled from the illness that prevented you from earning your income as a football player.
Okay, final question for you, because this has been incredibly informative and interesting.
In honor of Regis Philbin, you should say final question, and then I'll say final answer.
There you go. And then we'll play some Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac going out.
There you go, Peter Green, man. What a legend.
Mm-hmm. My other question is, how hard has it been, because you brought up Des Bryant, for guys like Des to get just a workout with the team? Do you anticipate seeing that more towards August 16th when we think we'll start seeing players on the field? And now that we know guys are opting out, in other words, could Des get that Patriots workout?
That is the third rail, Jane Slater, of the NFL conversations. I've talked to 9 general managers today. And to use the word pissed would be an understatement. And the reason they're pissed is there are all these rules and regulations as it relates to your roster, as it relates to who can come to the building, what practices you and Bobby can watch, et cetera, et cetera. But the most angry, or the reason they're the most angry, is there are no protocols for working out street free agents. There was a 5 p.m. conference call today. I do not know what happened because I was in the middle of negotiating a contract with the Chiefs for a player who's going to sign this week.
Just drop that one on us.
Yeah, come on.
Let's break some news.
There you go. Tedrick Thompson is going to sign.
Oh, hey, yeah. Oregon, was he Oregon State? Or Colorado? He was Colorado.
Good job.
Take that, Ian, Mike Garafolo, Schrager, and Schefter.
He was for the Cowboys.
I haven't gotten the contract yet, so it's not official, Jane, but you could tweet out, or Bobby could tweet out whatever one. You could do what Ian does all the time.
Yeah.
Sources tell me and Tom Pelissero. It's like, come on, bro.
So you're telling me before there's champagne getting bought in Kansas City, we've got another one.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So the GMs are hot over the fact that we can't work guys out. So I have a bunch of players that will get contracts in the next 2 weeks. Joe Webb, Domata Peko, Tedrick Thompson, Josh Gordon will eventually get reinstated and have a contract. But the teams cannot work them out. So, for example, and this may be one of the reasons why Tedrick got interest, is I sent a text to guys kind of Thursday last week, Friday last week, as this was getting finalized, and I had heard what was happening because I had been on the calls and I did my due diligence. I mean, this is my life. I better do it. The men rely on me for it. Is I called general managers and teams and said, hey, what are my street guys, street free agents, a Des Bryant, if you will, what are they supposed to do and how can you bring them in the building if you can't come in for 5 days? More importantly, you can't even go to a high school field to watch the player work out. And so one of the GMs was like, hey, you remember all those annoying videos you were sending me in the spring of your college kids? Because I have college kids that never got a pro day, never had a team get to see them. I mean, I have some studs, and they can't work them out. And they're hot, they're mad, they're pissed, to use my word earlier, that they can't work these guys out. But they can give them a physical, which is even more ridiculous, right? So they can put them in a medical environment, but they can't go watch them work out on the field. So that was part of the call today. I don't know if that rule has changed. I don't know where we are because obviously we go to podcast and cooking dinner. But with that said, when players come in the building, they have the same protocols. So now think about this. It's September 10th. 3 guys on your offensive line get COVID-19, and they can't play on September 11th. If the rules stay in place, you would then have to fly in replacements. They couldn't play in your game. You'd have to test them and wait 5 days.
3 negatives.
And then work the 3 of them out to pick one guy. It's just logistically never going to work.
And that is tough when you consider how many places that one particular free agent goes in a given 3-day period, and then a team settles on them, makes them an offer, et cetera. It is very, very interesting.
Some of this takes a while. Remember, some of this, like you'll have a guy that has a pre-existing injury, like Tedrick's coming off of a season-ending shoulder surgery and a labrum repair. He needs the physical probably more than he needs the on-field stuff. So what I did is I just told every one of my guys, no later than Tuesday, which is today, I need video of you on the field, doing football drills, doing the W drills, catching balls, pushing. Domata Pecco, who's got a bunch of interest right now, is going to go out tomorrow, and he's got his pads. He's got his pads that he has. He's got helmets that he has, and he has like a sled that we got him in the backyard, and he's going to go out and drive the sled and show swim and rip techniques because that's going to be his workout for an NFL team at 35 years old. Joe Webb sent me a video today. No exaggeration, Jane. He was like, yo, I have like 12 or 14 videos.
Dude, that's why you need a guy like Dez has got Manny Fresco just putting out that, that hot content for you, making you look good. Bobby, like I said,
we have one, by the way.
I love that. Of course you do. Drop. Bobby, like I said, I feel so bad that I've commandeered this. I know he's been on here forever. Do you have any closing thoughts for Bobby Belt?
Honestly, not a Dodgers fan. This is my rule for wearing hats of opposing teams. I'm a Rangers fan. Is if they're in another conference or league, so they're NL and we've never played them in the World Series, so I can wear this. I can't
buy that hat, or was it given to you?
I bought this hat. I bought this hat in California. Because Jane may remember the first day of training camp, I looked like a tomato. I got roasted so bad. And so I just stopped inside of a Target and I needed something to sort of cover me.
It's hot at Oxnard. I'll tell you that.
Sweet Bobby got his first opportunity to go to training camp last year. And one of his roles was Michael Irvin just threw him his Louis Vuitton bag and made him carry it around all day.
I was Michael's, I was like his purse on the red carpet type of,
You're his valet. It's called valet. You were his valet.
Pretty much, yeah. And that was always fun because he, I'm sure you've seen Michael. Michael just, there's somebody I know. I'm going to go talk to them, and I'm going to walk onto a field where the Cowboys 100%. PR team would scream at me if I followed him onto the field, and yet I need to get him back here for a live show. That was very stressful.
Michael will wander. My favorite Michael Irvin stories, I'm not going to tell any of them, are when he shows up to where we all are having dinner at Prime 47, and every single person, GM of the Bills, the Colts, the Raiders, the Ravens, all the media people, the guy that is literally has never, ever, ever seen Michael Irvin in person, their eyes get big. They all track him with their heads and watch him walk in, and he parts the Red Sea. He's Moses. Everybody wants to touch him. Everybody wants to talk to him. Everybody wants to hug him. I don't know if you can do any of that stuff now with COVID-19, but this March he did it. He showed up, walked through, and it's like, man, this guy just walked in. and he commands the room whenever he's in it. So
he's
that
so
doesn't surprise
magnetic.
me.
I mean, even when he does our podcast for us, the energy that he brings, like he just, and I got to think a guy like Michael Irvin's had a hard time because he's like Tinkerbell. He lives for applause. Like he feeds off that. That's who he is. He needs an audience. So I've missed him.
Tinkerbell. Don't call him Tinkerbell, Jim.
Yeah, don't do that.
I'm dead serious. I'm hanging up the phone. I'm texting him, and I'm saying, hey,
Jane Slater called you Tinkerbell.
On a podcast with Jane, and she called you Tinkerbell.
That's my dude. I love him. I love you too. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think in this business we have professional relationships. You become a good friend. Love you and Perry. I need a name drop for how many times I've said her. I just fangirl. She's amazing. I'm glad you and your family are doing well. And if you need quarantine ideas to keep your children engaged.
No, I need to get my kids out of my house.
No, my point is the Canters are it. You guys are like the Pinterest for families looking for ideas of how to keep your kids entertained. It's fascinating.
And David, if you guys need any masks, Jane has about 300 of them in her apartment. And
what do you have? Do you have kids masks, Jane?
I don't have kids masks, but I really think my side hustle should be a mask product reviewer. It's disturbing. I already go to the grocery store and I literally order things in threes. And I'm now ordering masks in threes. It's very weird.
So COVID-19 starts March in America, right?
Right.
Yeah, it started with Rudy Gobert, really.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it was already here, but
that caused everybody to go
like, whoa, they canceled the NBA season. This might be serious, right? Maybe it's more than the flu, the idiots.
Maybe.
So my kids and I, we did a Trolls World Tour night. So
oh, no.
I download the movie, I don't know if they dressed up like trolls. I don't know, but Perry did like a trolls dinner, and then we were going to do a dance party. So we have like a dark room in our house, which we watch movies with like the little chairs. And she got these Perry's my wife. She got these crazy like lights that glow, and we'll watch Trolls, and then we're gonna play all the music, and the kids are gonna dance, and of course my 5-year-old and my 8-year-old are gonna go bananas because they're bananas. So in the movie, which your viewers are probably, they've already canceled this podcast a long time ago. We lost him at the Mike Tyson story.
No, that reeled him in.
So Tiny Diamond, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. There's a troll that looks like
diamonds. It sounded like an Atlanta local celebrity.
Pretty much. Tiny Diamond is a little baby troll that pops out of his dad's head. His dad has the troll, and I became obsessed with him.
Oh.
So out of nowhere, like a month later, an Amazon box comes, and my kids are like, Dad, close your eyes. And they're all giggling, and they're all fun. So they bought me a Tiny Diamond troll doll for my office, because obviously you see like Olivia Vernon's there, Gwendo's there. I've got, Jamaica. I got one of the greatest things I have is a Mike Westhoff, former special teams coach, bobblehead doll. Anyway, so this is Tiny Diamond. And then he has, because we were talking about masks.
Oh, look at that.
We put a DEC management mask on him. and that's my celebrity plug for my kids. So Tiny Diamond can go.
That's great.
But
You are
masks,
seriously
by the way,
app.
I did masks literally March 1st. I was ordering masks before you could order them.
You are my favorite for a reason. Thank you so much for doing the show. Thank you for taking time away for your kids. And where can people find you on the internet? Since you've always got interesting, fun takes.
Just buy my clients jerseys and say nice things about them.
There you go.
You're the best.
That's all I care about. Love you guys. Thanks, guys.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Well, Bobby, a lot longer than what we typically do, but when you've got a good guest that tells you good stories, a guy like David who might name drop and product drop from time to time, I think that's his essence. That's an agent. And a lot of people don't get to see the behind the scenes of some of the guys we get to deal with in the league. But one of the guys I truly enjoy and appreciate him joining the show.
Yeah, I'm going to go get a Park Place Lexus car, and I'm going to then drive that to the Peloton store. And, and then I'll go, buy the pay-per-view of Mike Tyson's 8-round boxing match. Anybody else you mentioned? I don't know. At least. And
then show up to the facility with a spray ground backpack.
Yeah, exactly. At least you can take solace in the fact that whatever his next interview is, you'll be his name drop then. I was talking to Jane Slater, and so it'll balance out.
Well, we enjoy the fans, and like I said, we enjoy football. We know that we took a little bit of a brief hiatus. We plan on hopefully coming to you more frequently as we get some more football news. So thanks for staying with us. Thanks for caring, and we'll see you on the next one.